What's up YouTube? Today we are looking at UVI Shade. It's a creative EQ, I would say more of a filtering system with a ton of really cool modulation capabilities. For those who aren't familiar with UVI, UVI Falcon, well at least Falcon 2, is the soft synth with some of the best sounding filters in my opinion. And now we have the ability to use those filters outside of Falcon. With this new plugin, and it's super exciting for various reasons, but above the fact that just this filter sounds so good, I think the modulation here is particularly special. Anyway, let's dive in and have a look. So to start things off nice and simple, I just want to create a nice long saw wave, and we're going to try create some kind of like atmospheric effects using just the capabilities of the filters and the modulation of the filters. And there's some particularly exciting things, like I said, about the modulation here in this plugin, and we're going to dive into that shortly. So I'm just going to generate a nice long note in Serum, cool, a basic saw wave. So I'm going to go ahead here and let's pop in an instance of Shade, and let's have a dive into this plugin. So straight off the bat, you know, they say it's an equalizer plugin, but it's not the kind of equalizer that I would use for the kind of clinical stuff, particularly with like low end and that kind of thing. You know, it's more of the kind of creative thing, the type of thing that I would use to craft a filter and make use of its really cool modulation system to kind of like, you know, create these tonal differences and, you know, create sweeping sounds and that kind of thing, rather than trying to fine tune a specific sound like I would do with a more clinical EQ. Cool, so just that off the bat, let's dive in and try create some more creative stuff using the capabilities here. So how it works is you can add several different nodes of various different filter types. You know, there's tons in here. Comb filters, phases, flanges. We can create formant filters using various different combinations and stuff. So just to, you know, to kind of keep things simple to start off, let's just go ahead to this low pass setting over here, and we can choose a Salon key, which is kind of like a Korg MS10, MS20 type filter, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. And here we can start diving into some of the capabilities of the modulation now that we've got a filter loaded over here. So essentially you've got like all your parameters, like a traditional filter here. The other filter types do have varying curves and that kind of thing, but we're going to dive into that a little bit later on. So just straight off the bat, let's open up this bottom panel and we can dive into some of the exciting modulation settings that we have here. So we could create a traditional LFO with varying kind of like parameters here, symmetry and that kind of thing, to kind of like change the shape of it and that kind of thing. But I think that something that's really cool here is this figure generator. So what this is, it's kind of similar to an LFO, but you kind of get a little bit more of a geometric approach to generating the modulation. Let me rather show you than try explain what's happening here. So I'm just going to drag this modulation node over onto the frequency, and you'll see this X1 appears over here. So then obviously dragging this node would change the amount of modulation. Very intuitive modulation system. I mean, you don't really have to read the manual to be able to use this, which is firstly a plus for a lot of plugins on the market nowadays. So as you can see, you know, we've got a circle which traditionally kind of translates into a sine wave. We've got two outputs here, one that kind of coincides with the X and one that coincides with the Y. So using the shape parameter, you can kind of change these preset shapes into how it's going to kind of modulate that parameter, and you can kind of get this weird flower of life pattern going, which is pretty cool. You can change the amount of vertices, which is the, you know, points in the star, so to speak, and then we can kind of change how it plays off like this. Let's have a listen to what's going on here. I actually want to make the MIDI note a little bit longer, just so we've got more time to kind of hear that modulation kind of like playing out there. So let's just stretch it like this and then do a duplicate like that. And I also want to turn the octave down a little bit. So let's just go octave down 1 like this. And then I want to use the pre-EQ in Cubase just to remove some of the very, very low end before going into the filter. So what I want to do is, each of these filters has varying kind of like stereo settings. You can choose to apply the filter onto the entire stereo band, or you can have just the left, just the right, just the mid, just the side, etc., etc. So what I want to do here is let's make this filter that we just created apply only to the left side. So we could create a copy of the band by just holding Control and then moving it along like this. Then what we can do is we can go ahead and change this to the right side. So we've got one filter on the left. I think I might have said right earlier, but anyway, and then one filter on the right side. So what we can do here is let's set this Y parameter to modulate the frequency of the other filter. So we get this kind of like geometric 3D pattern going on. So let's have a look at some of these more kind of special filters, something like this phaser. So there's obviously various different ones you can choose within each one, but the multi-resonant ones are particularly interesting. You can get some like really crazy, like shapes and tonal textures out of it. I want to put a bit of delay and reverb on this channel. I think that can really liven it up a bit. So as usual, it's color copy and rev intensity. So another really cool thing is that it can react to sidechain inputs. So I'm not going to go too in depth about how sidechain works in Cubase, but you could basically enable it like this. Let's choose kicks over here. I believe this should be the kick channel that I'm actually using for this track, and then you click this button to actually enable it. Then what we can do is you can actually use the sidechain input, I think by clicking follow like this, and enable sidechain like this. So we can use the kind of like movement of our kick drum to kind of alter the filters to create like a kind of pumping motion or something like that, or a kind of sidechainy type effect. So let's create another filter on the end of the chain here. We can go with stereo as well. And let's just drag this parameter over like this. I actually want to do it the other way around, so it like dips when the kick hits. Let's maybe change this to a high pass so we can kind of create like a, you know, we have like a deep low end of the synth coming through. We're going to invert that again. But then when the kick hits, it kind of like removes that low end. Another interesting thing that I didn't quite pick up at first is you've got the spread parameter, and what this allows you to do is with some of the filters, I'm not sure if it works with all the filter modes, but it allows you to change the stereo offset without actually setting two separate channels. So here, as you could see, it's kind of like spread the stereo of these two. I'm not sure if that's so visible here. So keep in mind, this is just a basic saw wave, you know. If we get more complex, like feeding signals into it, like let's say, for example, like a FM, basic shapes, set this down an octave, FM from B. Okay, so I just want to explore some of these filter shapes. So I'm going to set this back to a saw wave, and we can jump back into some of these more experimental ones. So let's just clear this. So we've got an init patch. Something cool I realized is you've got these multi-resonant, and this can be used as like a kind of formant filter type of thing. So let's try to create a formant type of sound using this bandpass multi-resonant. So here they've got these MSEG, which is basically a stepped LFO. And if you select this kind of like blocked little diagram over here, you have the ability to actually draw in these steps. So we can draw in a nice little stepped vibe to create like a kind of asterisk type of thing with this formant. Let's see how this goes. So here, something interesting is if you set this to stereo MS, like mid-side, you can use the spread to kind of spread between mid-side as opposed to left-right, which creates some pretty interesting effects as well. What even is that filter? That is ridiculous. It's absolute ridiculousness. What is happening there? Absolutely, hands down, the sickest filter, craziest, maddest filter I think I've ever heard in my life. Like, what even? Sounds amazing though. Great for these kind of really crazy high-techy things, you know. I think something like a gatekeeper after this whole kind of reverb effects chain could be great, you know, to create a kind of more rhythmic base to this randomness. A big thanks to UVI. They did actually send me this plugin for the purpose of this video, but when I first had a look at it and I had a quick listen to some of the demos that they had, I was sold pretty instantly. So I think it's pretty awesome that they extended the offer to me, because I probably would have bought it anyway. It sounds so damn good. And I was sold on the Falcon filters anyway to begin with. So yeah, thanks UVI. Awesome. So that's about it. There's definitely going to be some more tutorials on my channel using this plugin, because I think it's absolutely amazing. It sounds the part, and yeah, super easy, super intuitive to use. So you guys should definitely check it out as well. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. And yeah, as always, if you like this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and yeah, see you guys next time.